I thought it'd be fun to give you guys some poetry recommendations. I know that poetry can be a little harder of a genre to get into because other than what you're forced to read in school, a lot of people don't have as easy access to poetry or aren't familiar with modern poets or poets outside of Shakespeare and things like that. And so they either think that poetry is not for them or they just don't know where to start. I think a lot of poetry, it can be really dense for a beginner and you're like, I don't even know what it's saying. And like a lot of the poems I'm going to read today, you can get a glimpse of, at least on the surface level, what it's saying. You're not going to go walking away scratching your head being like, I have no idea what just happened. The other thing too is that they're short. I don't have the attention span for long poetry. I know those could be amazing, but that's just not my jam. Poetry I'm recommending today, each poem is like 1 or 2 pages tops. So super accessible. You're not trying to keep this like dense analysis in your head and keep track of everything for pages on pages. Yeah, like they're all more modern too. So hopefully you'll find something that you might be willing to give a shot. I'm going to give you some, well, I think they're excellent poetry recommendations, as well as read 1 or 2 poems from each so you can kind of get an idea of the vibe and the style of them. So here we go. First we have Good Woman, Poems and a Memoir, 1969 to 1980 by Lucille Clifton. And now I'm going to read 2 of her poems. Ooh. In Salem, to Jeanette. Weird sister, the black witches know that the terror is not in the moon, choreographing the dance of were ladies, and the terror is not in the broom, swinging around to the hum of cat music, nor the wild clock face, grinning from the wall. The terror is in the plain pink at the window, and the hedges moralist fire, and the plain face of the white woman watching us as she beats her ordinary bread. So good. Definitely does a lot of poetry around America and American race relations and to be a woman and a little bit of everything. Her poetry goes everywhere and I love that. The first, what I remember about that day is boxes stacked across the walk and couch springs curling through the air and drawers and tables balanced on the curb and us hollering, leaping up and around, happy to have a playground. Nothing about the emptied rooms, nothing about the emptied family. Damn. Damn. What more is there to say? Like, her poetry really speaks for itself. As you can see, I have a lot of notey notes on my favorite ones, but those are just 2. So there you go. Next we have Dismantling Silence, Poems by Charles Simek. And I think this dude won some prizes. Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, so he published a butt ton and also teaches at a university. And
he's also received the Edward Allan Poe Award, the Penn Translation Prize, a Guggenheim Foundation Fellowship, and the MacArthur Foundation Fellowship.
So, you know, he's undiscovered, guys. So I will again read you 2 poems. Summer morning. I love to stretch like this, naked, on my bed in the morning, quiet, listening. Outside, they are opening their primers in the little school of the cornfield. There is a smell of damp hay, of horses, of summer sky, of laziness, of eternal life. I know all the dark places where the sun hasn't reached yet, where the singing has just ceased, in the hidden aviaries of the crickets, ant hills where it goes on raining, slumbering spiders dreaming of wedding dresses. I pass over the farmhouses where the little mouths open to suck, barnyards where a man, naked to the waist, washes his face with a hose, where the dishes begin to rattle in the kitchen. The good tree with its voice of a mountain brook knows my steps. It hushes. I stop and listen. Somewhere close by, a stone cracks a knuckle, another turns over in its sleep. I hear a butterfly stirring in the tiny soul of the caterpillar. I hear the dust dreaming of eyes and great winds. Further ahead, someone, even more silent, passes over the grass without bending it. And all of a sudden, in the midst of that silence, it seems possible to live simply on the earth. Such a simple poem, but really beautiful and kind of awakens your curiosity. It's It's very nature-filled, pastoral. The next poem is called Fear. Fear passes from man to man, unknowing, as one leaf passes its shutter to another. All at once, the whole tree is trembling, and there's no sign of the wind. I love it because like there's a good blend of ones that make you think and ones that just make you like kind of a snapshot, like live in the moment and be like, oh, I feel like I'm there. And so that's one of those thinking ones, and it's so simple, and yet, I don't know, it kind of echoes within you after, I find. Okay, on to the next one. Next we have The Rain in Portugal by Billy Collins. I'm a huge fan of Billy Collins. He's got a great sense of humor. He has very modern, even quite humorous poetry. And if you're only going to give one of these a shot, I would highly recommend Billy Collins. I think you can't go wrong there, and you'll see why with these next two poems. Lucky Cat. It's a law as immutable as the ones governing bodies in motion and bodies at rest, that a cat picked up will never stay in the place where you choose to set it down. I bet you'd be happy on the sofa, or this hassock, or this knitted throw pillow, are a few examples of bets you are bound to lose. The secret of winning, I have found, is to never bet against the cat, but on the cat, preferably with another human being who, unlike the cat, is likely to be carrying money. And I cannot think of a better time to thank our cat for her obedience to that law, thus turning me into a consistent winner. She's a pure black one, quite impossible to photograph, and prone to disappearing into the night or even into the thin shadows of noon. Such an amorphous blob of blackness is she. The only way to tell she is approaching is to notice the two little yellow circles of her eyes, then only one circle when she is walking away with her tail raised high. Something like the lantern signals of Paul Revere, American silversmith, galloping patriot. So for you cat lovers out there, he's writing about cats. Get on it. But see, like it's such a simple concept, right? Like he's just writing about a cat, and everyone knows of cats, has met a cat, and so being playful with the nature of cats and how they don't like to listen and how you're always wrong about what they want, it just makes for good poetry. I love it. Next we have Microscopic Pants. Among the more remarkable features of the calendar, right up there with the meandering date of Easter and the regular appearance of Flag Day, is how the end of May slips unnoticed into the beginning of June. It's a transition so subtle, usually one day of sunshine and birdsong, passing into another day of sunshine and birdsong, that it feels like being switched as an infant from one of your mother's breasts to the other, which is how the Bengali poet Tagore described the smooth transition from this life into the next. A truly striking way of putting it, like saying the ants in your pants have ants in their pants when you are more nervous than usual, because it's funny to think of ants wearing pants, and it rhymes. Plus, it suggests an infinite series of tinier and tinier ants pulling on smaller and smaller pairs of pants, like the facing of barbershop mirrors of my childhood when my newly shorn head would repeat itself down a hallway of reflections. I hadn't heard of Tagore back then, nor had I given much thought to the calendar, but I knew I did not want to vanish down that hallway, never to see my parents again or my dog Sparky, and never to grow up, as it turned out, to study Tagore and think about the months bearing their old Roman names from one year into the next. And see, it starts off humorous, but he's got a point. Like, it's not just like, it has a point, and like there's a cyclical nature to this poem. It's talking about time, and there's a beauty to that. Like within the scope of like this page and a half, you're going from him in modern day to him learning about this Bengali poet to way back into his childhood, and then back like aging himself back up again. And that's pretty awesome. Like even if you're not in love with poetry after this, you have to admit how concise someone can like take us on a journey in a page and a half. Next, we have The Art of Haiku, Its History Through Poems and Paintings by the Japanese Masters, edited and written by Stefan Addis. I couldn't go through a poetry video and not mention haiku, and I think this is a great one to start with. It covers a lot of questions people might have about Japanese poetry and haiku, as well as introducing you to some of the like more famous, like classic haikus and the people who wrote them. A lot of them have to do with nature, so you get just a beautiful glimpse of like this nice moment. But also a lot of them talk about humorous things or universal truths and like humanity. So you can go from funny to deep to nostalgic to back to just like a nice nature scene. Yeah, I'm gonna read a few of these just because they're so short. Bruised by the sun, a single leaf falls, no wind. I'm also a sucker for the sad ones, so I try to like have more than those. Now this one's a famous one by Basho, so I felt the need to include it just in case you never go into haiku. Summer grasses, all that remains from the dreams of brave warriors. Oh, and here's what's called a senru, which is a funny one. This won't hurt, says the surgeon, taking out his needle. So even back then, like there's still a lot of stuff that translates very well to modern day. We very much and most likely have that experience. Here's another one. Left behind by the thief, the moon at my window. I love the imagery of that. That's by Ryokan. I'll leave it there. I don't want to read haiku to you all day, even though I could. There's a lot of great ones. And so again, like this is like the OG masterclass of Japanese haiku poets, but there are modern day poets. There's online publications. There's so much. There's a whole world and I'm obsessed. So if you're interested, I might make a video on that, but we'll stop here for today. Last but not least, we have our troubled child, Charles Bukowski, and his poetry collection, Love is a Dog from Hell. So if you've never heard of Charles Bukowski, he would have been canceled 5 million times by now. He is highly sexual and sexualizes a lot of people. He's very crude. He's very problematic. So be warned. I'm not going to read anything super naughty for YouTube purposes. I don't want to be canceled by Daddy YouTube. But just know that if you could get this collection or anything by Charles Bukowski, there's going to be some stuff in it. Like he's not afraid to talk about sex, poop, alcohol, all the things. So just, you've been warned, trigger warning. Sandra is a slim, tall, ear-ringed bedroom damsel dressed in a long gown. She's always high in heels, spirit, pills, booze. Sandra leans out of her chair, leans toward Glendale. I wait for her head to hit the closet doorknob as she attempts to light a new cigarette on an almost burnt out one. At 32, she likes young, neat, unscratched boys with faces like the bottoms of new saucers. She has proclaimed as much to me, has brought her prizes over for me to view. Silent blonde zeros of young flesh who A, sit, B, stand, C, talk, at her command. Sometimes she brings one, sometimes two, sometimes three, for me to view. Sandra looks very good in long gowns. Sandra could probably break a man's heart. I hope she finds one. So this one obviously is clean compared to his other stuff, but you can just, there's a lot of melancholy and almost reverence in this poem, and you'll see that throughout this collection. Okay, and here's another one that I found that I thought was good and also appropriate. Again, I'm not about like censoring poetry, but I am all about not getting flagged on the YouTubes. Another bed, another woman, more curtains, another bathroom, another kitchen, other eyes, other hair, other feet and toes. Everybody's looking. The eternal search. You stay in bed. She gets dressed for work. And you wonder what happened to the last one and the one before that. It's all so comfortable. This lovemaking, the sleeping together, the gentle kindness. After she leaves you, get up and use her bathroom. It's all so intimate and so strange. You go back to bed and sleep another hour. When you leave, it's with sadness, but you'll see her again, whether it works or not. You drive down to the shore and sit in your car. It's almost noon. Another bed, other ears, other earrings, other mouths, other slippers, other dresses, colors, doors, phone numbers. You were once strong enough to live alone. For a man nearing 60, you should be more sensible. You start the car and shift, thinking, I'll phone Janie when I get in. I haven't seen her since Friday. So again, there's that longing, there's that yearning that shows up again and again in his poems. And I don't think you have to condone the author in order to appreciate their art. I got it used, so it's fine. Also, pretty sure he's dead. He's dead, right? Am I crazy? I'm like so dubious that I don't know if anyone's alive or not. Because it wasn't until a couple years ago I found out that Bob Ross has been dead a minute. So now I'm dubious. Everyone's alive and everyone's dead. Let's just put it that way. During his lifetime. Okay, posthumous editions. He'd be dead. He's dead. Just in case you're confused. He did. All right, so there you have it, folks. With me and my poetry voice. I hope that gave you some ideas for poetry that you can dabble with or get started in. These are some of my favorites. For those who know me, I try not to keep things unless I really love them, so I keep coming back to these books, which is why I own them, and I think that's a good endorsement. So let me know if there's any poets or poetry collections that you like and would recommend down below. I'm always looking for new stuff now that I'm not in a bookstore. And I'll catch you next time. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see ya on the flippity flip. Bye.